All right, hello, hello. Welcome to playing the internship game part one. We are a sweet technical community. I'm internal tech. See a lot of familiar faces from mentorship. Christine.
Yeah, I'm Christine, and my pronouns are she, they, and I'm technical external.
All right, since we started here. All right, so before we start, we're gonna give you a little disclaimer. You do not have to worry about like having your camera on or going to workout rooms or getting called on. Really chill workshops tonight. You can just listen in. Um, And so yeah, but that doesn't mean you can't ask us questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat anytime, and then we'll answer them as we go through them. And so this workshop's recorded. You'll get the slides afterwards, so don't feel too overwhelmed by all the slides. So yeah. All right. So our kind of agenda and game manual that we're going to do over today is we're going to start with introducing the game and why we call it the Playing the Internship Game Workshop. Then we'll go into researching companies, your resume, cover letter, and then part two will be next week. So if we start with the game, we want to say welcome to all of you to this is kind of your first aspect of the game, I would say. And so what are we doing? Why are we looking at internships as this game? And so I kind of saw it as a game my first year as well, because it's kind of like to be successful at it and to win the game, so to speak, you need to know how to play it right. And this doesn't just go for internships, it kind of goes for life and college in general. You need to know what pieces you need, how to play the game, what strategies, and you need to know the rules, because if you don't play the game right, then you may not win. And so it's all about how you look at the game, how you look at the events, and you're going to realize as you go through college that you're going to have a lot of workshops about internships, about resumes, about cover letters, and we just want to be a little bit different, be a little bit more creative than some of the other ones. So yeah, we're gonna introduce you to this game. We're gonna show you all the pieces, all the strategies, all the rules that you'll need. And then you're in really good hands. So why are we going to play this game? And I know that all of you are kind of also maybe thinking, why are we thinking about internships at this kind of time of the year? So internships will help you get industry experience. They're different from school, which is really great because school can not be the greatest sometimes. But they're the real world. It gives you a 10-week, 12-week glimpse into what it is like to work a full-time job. And you probably hear a lot of people like, oh, like working at an internship is just really different from school. And so that's a really good thing to keep in mind, because your internship, as you work during the summer, will be your building block for a full-time job after college, if industry is what you choose to go under. And so if we talk about who can play this game, we just want all of you to know that all of you can play this game, including incoming freshmen. That's how I did it my first year. That's how Christine did it their first year. And you don't need to be this super big expert about internships to play this game. Anyone can play. We're going to show you all the rules and all the ways to play. And it's just whether or not you want to make this choice to play the game. Because if you don't want an internship, that's totally chill. That's totally fine. You can go play the research game. You can go play the clubs and the projects game. That's totally great. We're just going to talk about this game today because I know that this is a big one. We're just going to kind of dissect into a few pieces for you. So if we're going to talk about a game, we need to talk about what winning is. And winning as a word in the English language is just a bit subjective and it's different for everyone. And so when I was an incoming freshman, my definition of winning was just putting my name out there, like trying my best at career fairs, just trying, to go talk to people. I wasn't expecting an internship my first year. And I want all of you to know that winning doesn't mean getting an internship, and not getting an internship isn't losing, because there's a lot of steps in between that you can consider small wins. For a lot of you, maybe making your first resume tonight is going to be a really big win. And going throughout your college experience, continuing to add to that resume is also a really big win. And so we want you to kind of look at the game a lot differently and not just think of it as like a win-lose, but as a kind of gradual level up, just like in games, which is why I called it this is a kind of an analogy tonight. So remember, it's your choice. We're not going to force you to do anything. And you don't have to force yourself. And we don't want any of you to feel pressured to play this game if you don't want to. And we understand that recruiting season is stressful and overwhelming. And I feel overwhelmed about it too. And sometimes I just want to quit the game. That is totally fine. Take a break from the game. You can leave this workshop and come back later if that's kind of what you want to do. But we don't want to pressure any of you to play this game. It's your choice. We just want to give you all the best resources if you do choose to play. So before we can even start the game, we need to know how to research companies and why it's important. So this is kind of the biggest part before you actually start doing your resume or your application, because the fact is that you can't apply to every single company out there in the world. There's just too many, and that's just like too exhausting. So you need to know very strategically what companies you do want to talk to at career fairs, what companies you do want to apply for, because each one of those takes time. I wish it could be just like this go aspect, but to really get your foot in the door, you need to take time on all these things. And so to research the company, you need to know like what you're interested in. Like, what industry do you want to go down? Do you want to go down defense? I'm in defense. I know that it could be polarizing, but I love what I do, and I get that other people don't love what I do. And it's taking this time to focus on what you want to do and not what other people are telling you to do. Because at the end of the day, the company you work at is what you're doing. And so you need to know if you're interested. You need to know if you love it. And kind of the hard part about an internship is you're only there for maybe 10, 12 weeks, but it gives you a really good glimpse into the culture. And so you need to know this going in. Like, when you go to a career fair, what are you going to talk to them about? What are you going to ask them? And that's why we need to research them in the beginning. And so as you research, which we'll get to right a bit, you're going to start finding some job applications. Just a little sneak peek, but a lot of job recs drop in fall, as in September, as in when we go to school. I'm not going to think about that when we go to school, but applications are open all year round. You just have to know where to look for them, and we're going to show you exactly where to do that further down the workshop. Okay. So how do you do this? How do you know what company you want to work at? What company you want to talk to? What are you interested in? You have to ask yourself a lot of deep questions. And not that deep, I guess. There are companies, but what do you find interesting? What do you want to look for in a company? I know that when I go research companies, I look for if they have really good diversity, if they stand for something that's greater than themselves, if their company culture is like this, do they work 980? You'll get better at this, as well as all the other tests we're going to talk about tonight, as you could keep practicing this game. And so you need to know what it's like to work at the company. You can ask people who've worked at that company. Maybe you have family members there. Maybe you have an upperclassman friend. Just ask them, be like, hey, like, what was your experience like at company X? And people like to talk, so they'll tell you all the tea about the company that you want to hear. And if not, like, go on LinkedIn, which we'll talk about in a bit, and ask them now, like, hey, like, did you like this company? What was really great about it? And if you can't find that, then there's this thing called Reddit. And I don't recommend Reddit as like a professional source, but like, we've all been down the Reddit hole, and that's okay. Just take it with a grain of salt. But as long as you just get a really good idea of what it's like at that company and what they do, then you'll have perfectly a way into how to craft your resume and how to talk to them at a career fair. And so how do you research a company? We're actually going to do a little demo of this in a bit, but it's different for every person. Like, I wish I could come here and tell you, like, you have to do X, Y, Z to research a company. You need to know this exactly every time, but I can't, because it's different for everyone. And kind of how these slides are is that we would just want to be a little bit general so that it applies to everyone. But these are some of the biggest things I like to hear about. Like, what are their projects? What are they doing? Look at that website they have. It better be nice. Like, do you judge the UI like I do all the time? Your company better have a nice website if they pay lots of money to do that, especially a software company. But these are also things that I like to know going into researching companies. Like, what is their mission? Do they care about their workers? Do they care about what they do? Do they care about their community? And then find something that you really like about them. Is it a project that they're doing, like, you're super interested in? Like, latch onto that, read about that, and just kind of go from there. And yeah, we're gonna do a little company demo. Christine, how are we on questions? Are we good?
We are good right now.
So yeah, just a reminder to all of you, you can drop questions anytime in the chat, and one of us will answer it either live or in the chat. So don't be scared about asking questions. So let me bring over Adobe's website. Can you see it, Christine? Adobe's website.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, 70% off Creative Cloud. Oh wait, we have Creative Cloud, correct?
It's free. Yeah.
It's free for students, but look, they're doing 70% off. How amazing. Thank you for our wonderful EVP Rithika for suggesting me to do this website to research. Except now I'm gonna want to go click this buy now button, but try not to do that on company website, so you don't need to start wasting money already. So if this is their company website, I'm gonna kind of just start by like anything that catches my eye. Obviously the 70% catches my eye, but that's because of a different reason. You can see what they do, start a free trial. I always like to do those, but that's not what we're here for. Let's see. What is Acrobat DC? And so if you already kind of know what Adobe is, like they do a lot of like the PDF stuff. UCLA has free Adobe Creative. Yes, I do. Explore business solutions, data, insights, and audiences. See, you can just view all products. You can just go anywhere you want, like events, why Adobe, and you can just go the about section. Wow, this thing has so many tabs everywhere. So you can just read. Look how pretty this is. And then any of these buttons, like you can just click learn more. Let's learn more about this. And just click around. Like, what do you find interesting? Do you find PDF interesting? I do. I use it all the time. And so yeah, just it's about clicking. It's about finding how to do things, and you're gonna start realizing that some companies have nicer websites than others, but that's just how it is. And sometimes you can judge a company for it. I don't mind doing that, but it's about what you think is interesting. You clicked on their website, like what is catching your eye? And I can't tell you how long you need to spend, like in terms of minutes for researching a company. That's different for everyone. And it takes practice on how to research a company, but click around. Like, this is your time to explore. Yes, it's time that you're not necessarily like watching Netflix, but like it's important time if you do really want to play the game. Any questions about the demo? I know I didn't click too many places. I kind of just want to buy things now. But were we good on questions? We're good? We're doing okay?
We're good.
We haven't all left because the game is overwhelming yet? No? Can I leave? I'm kidding. Okay, you can see the slides again, right?
Yep.
All right, we'll move past the demo now. So what I like to do when I research companies is I like to take notes because I usually research a lot of companies for career fairs. My brain just cannot hold all that information at once. And if I'm going to be honest with you, when there is a career fair, it's hard to do all the prep the night before. Part of doing this game is being, cognizant of time management and how you do this with classes and clubs. And it's about how much you want to play the game. And I'm going to keep emphasizing that throughout this workshop because it's up to you how much time and effort you put into this. But if you really do care about the process, then we're going to give you all the right steps to do so. So yeah, I like to write things down. Maybe you don't. Maybe a different note-taking thing works for you. Whatever works for you. So let's see it. And then now we'll move on to, well, I guess before we move on to the resume, are there any questions about how to like research companies? Why it's important? We're good. I have a 3-second silence limit. Okay, Christine, you're up.
Yep, very good. Okay, so we'll be going into the resume, which is arguably one of the bigger parts of just finding an industry internship. So what exactly is your resume? This is like I just said, the most important part of the entire game. And it's one page that basically sums up your entire experiences, your skills, whether they're academic or extracurricular or just some personal project that you've started. It's a place for you to showcase that. And like Vivian said, crafting a resume is not an art. I mean, it's not a science, it's just an art. So this is kind of what makes the game different for everyone. It means that it's a process that you can master over time. And your resume is, of course, always changing throughout your college experience and just throughout the entire game. You can just click through this part. So these are kind of like aspects of what make your resume strong. So some of the previous parts that I said was relevant experience, and there are specific accomplishments and a customized resume. So you'll note that there are different percentages associated with each of these parts, and it kind of is a representation of like how important each of those aspects are. And a customized resume, even though that might seem like a point that's not really like focused on when it comes to like just putting down all your accomplishments on a resume, it's still a pretty important part of the entire process. Okay, and we can go into like the common myth associated with just finding industry internships in general and the truth about that. So First and second years lack work or research or internship experience and therefore cannot get an internship is a common belief amongst many people. I know that that was one of my primary concerns last year. And the actual answer to this is that you're at UCLA. Of course you have experience, like you're at college, you're here. And like going to UCLA in itself is an incredible feat that you shouldn't be looking down upon. And it's obviously okay to have your high school experiences on your resume because like at that point in time, that's honestly the only thing you really have as an incoming freshman. And that just means that you shouldn't be downplaying your accomplishments. And of course, as you go through your time in college, that's when you kind of get the meat to like beef up your resume. And that's why the game takes time. Okay, so we can go over short parts of your resume. And yeah, just something quick to note is that the slides have a few images from various resume sources, and that's why the fonts and like stylings are a little bit different. But just kind of a message is to not have different fonts on your resume because consistency is key, and you want your recruiters to be able to read everything that's on, you know, basically a summary of your work accomplishments. And so we just want to show you various ways and examples that you can craft your resume. That's just something to keep in mind. So the first part here is name and contact information. Things to include here are just listed on the side on the left: full name, full address closest to the company. So in the case that you have a permanent, like, what do you call it? Permanent like home address versus like your apartment or your dorm address, pick the address that's closest to wherever you're hiring, wherever you're looking at. And just more things to add on: phone numbers, emails. Make sure that this email is like a professional email that you know you check often and that you often kind of like clear out the spam for, because you want to make sure that, you know, nothing gets lost in the deluge that often comes from like different spam things. LinkedIn links and just external sources like GitHub or like a personal website where you might just have put things that you might want to show off about yourself, and maybe some just separators, like I don't know what you call that specific character, but it's like the L looking
The or symbol. The or symbol.
Oh, you're right. Okay, the or symbol. And some tips for here is to make sure that your name stands out from the rest of the name and contact information part. So you see here that there's like a specific line dedicated to that. And something to note about the first example is that it has Jay Bruin versus Joe Bruin. I would recommend kind of sticking to the format at the bottom version where it has your full name there. And of course, make sure that your voicemail on your phone number is set up, because you don't want recruiters calling you and then being like, oh, your voicemail wasn't set up, so you didn't get my call. And just for this entire section, just dedicate 2 to 3 lines and have one of those be your line for your name. And of course, make sure your links work with PDFs that you might have linked here. And like I said, just put active emails and phone numbers. Okay, so education. Things to include here are your degree type. So I think it varies within UCLA, but for people within the engineering school, it's all bachelor's of sciences or BSs. And make sure you mention that this is your degree in something and not just like a major. So don't say you're majoring in, like, for example, CS. You're currently pursuing a bachelor's of science in computer science. Also include your GPA if it's higher than, oh, okay.
You can keep going. Finish the slide. Go ahead.
Well, we're getting a request for live transcription. Are you going to turn
Gotcha,
that on?
gotcha.
Okay, I think we're fine with enabling that, right?
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. And now I think there's expected graduation date and any relevant coursework. So you'll see here that there are like biochemistry, molecular biology, and computer science listed as relevant courses. That's obviously something I can do. Tips for this section are to give a GPA scale so that your recruiter has a better understanding of like your, I guess, educational like grading system. So if it's like a 3.8 out of like a 5 versus like a 3.8 out of 4, obviously you'd want to clarify that. Using bolding and italics to your advantage, but also being careful of not overusing these, because then it kind of detracts from the whole point of emphasizing things with these special formatting tips. And be honest about your GPA. So in online applications, you can just say that this isn't applicable to you in case you don't feel comfortable with disclosing this. But of course, you don't want to like forge a GPA and then they ask for your official transcript and you're like, oh God. Then yeah, it might help in this case to just include your major GPA, because I know that in some cases your GPA could dip based on classes that you might have to take for like any extracurricular things, like not extracurricular, but not necessarily major related courses. And I think the final tip here is that for incoming freshmen, not to include your high school GPA, because recruiters know and understand that like you have to wait for your first college like quarter grades to at least come out, but they're not really interested in like the high school GPA that you have.
All right, before we go on to the next slide, I'll kind of throw out a question from the chat. Let me go back.
Mhm.
Slide. All right, there you go. Do you recommend using your personal or UCLA email? And I would say, to answer this, whichever one you check more. Because I never check my UCLA email, to be honest. That is why it is not on my resume. And I also don't know if your UCLA email expires after you're done being a student. Both emails should have professional starting first halves of the email.
Yeah, like your key username, whatever.
Yeah. Use whichever one you're gonna be able to check more frequently, I would say.
I'd actually also say that if you have like a personal that you use for like non-professional things and like a personal that you do have specifically dedicated to professional things, use that over your school email, just in case you don't know, like Vivian said, what happens to that email after you graduate. And also, I just think it's better to separate your educational and your like academic versus like professional matters like through email. So that's just a personal preference, but there's my answer.
All right, we answer the question. All right, well, move forward. Continue.
Okay, so your next section of your resume would be your technical skills, where you list just whatever you're an expert in, or like whatever you have experience with working in at the time. And so things to include here are your proficiencies in each skill. Where, okay, this is kind of similar to when you all remember writing like college applications. So don't be modest, be honest, and don't over exaggerate or lie about this, because your recruiters will definitely know if they ask you about this on technical or like what soft behavioral skill questions. And also keep formatting consistent, because sometimes that happens. Tips are to list your skills kind of in order of relevancy or in order of proficiency. So I know that for some resume examples, they have a section where they tell you to list your technical skills and then kind of rate them from like 1 to 10, like how confident you're in. So imagine that you have that bar set for like every resume that you create, and that you list things from skills that have like the highest number of bars filled in to like lowest. And you can also place your skills into like subcategories if you want. Just make sure not to risk like over cluttering your resume, because it is a lot of information to include, and you just want everything to be easily parsable to the human eye, as well as any like computer resume parser that your recruiter might be using. And the final tip here is to use comma lists rather than bullet points to save space on your resume. So like in the bottom section here, you know, they've put skills and then like bullet point proficient in whatever, self-motivated. You prefer to include your skills as in the format that's listed above, because it's, yeah, like I said earlier, it kind of saves space on other things that you might want to include. And this is the relevant experience section. So general things to include here are work experience, personal projects, research, club projects, leadership and extracurriculars, and non-technical work experience. So these are like what you've applied aforementioned technical skills to. So don't be afraid of like including things that you don't think might be completely applicable or like fall under each of these specific categories. But as long as you're able to demonstrate the technical skills that you've listed above in something that you've listed in this section, that's something that's worth including. Some other things to mention are that this is like a place for you to list those things in like a concise but like descriptive bullet point manner. So it shows like, you know, the what you've learned out of it, so your experience and the final results, and just kind of try to convey as succinctly as possible what you've gotten out of each point here. And also, if it's applicable, include the company or place that you've worked at, and what title you held, the date, and locations. And of course, use action words. And I have general tips here that include, like, you know, having your tenses stay in like present or like past tense. If you're currently doing it like in the process of going through that experience, then you can always leave that in present tense, but the rest of the things should be in past. And try to fill up as much space as possible, but also make things readable. So it's like a fine balance there. And order these things in order of like how recent the experience has happened, and try to mention like numbers, because as much as we don't like to admit it, that is what counts for a lot when talking about these experiences.
I'll just jump in here and say that kind of the example we gave on this one has 5 bullet points for one kind of experience. And if like, you don't have to like do 5. I mean, I don't do 5 on mine. I think I do 2 or 3. And so you get to pick how much you say about each experience. If you even use bullet points, that kind of thing as well. So yeah, just want to drop that in.
Yeah. And like, odds are that recruiters will probably ask you about more details about the relevant experiences anyway. So that's a chance where you'll get to like flesh out the points that you might have wanted to include it, but didn't have space on your resume too. And these are just helpful links that will be attached to these slides when we send out later. Just action verbs that you might use in your resume, and just how to write about these sections in particular. So you can, I know that over the time that you'll spend either in like that you've spent in high school or that you will spend in college, there'll be like a whole list of just relevant experiences that you will be able to pick from. And just what's up to you here is to tweak the experiences that you pick based on the finer, like the more, I guess, finer details of each position that you're applying for. And of course, ask for feedback from actual recruiters of the company that you're trying to look for, because your peers might have some subjective opinions, and though they are like a good place to like ask for help from, ultimately who's deciding if you like have a chance to interview at it are the recruiters there. So just keep that in mind. I think, yeah. Okay, and these are just some general other resume rules. Formatting. What I was emphasizing a lot earlier was that your resume has to be easily readable. So just general tips here are to pick a professional, clean, and readable font that's not too small or too big. So try to stay away from those resumes where you're like, you have to like pull it up to your eyes to like be able to actually process what the words say. And but also, you know, don't make your font so big that you can't include all the things that you want to say. Of course, use correct grammar, spelling, and punctuation. Just triple check everything that you're writing. Make sure that the headers for each section are clear. Make efficient use of your bolding and italics, and don't overuse them. Spacing should be consistent, and line up everything if possible. Be consistent about the entire resume. So all of the aspects of, you know, headers, fonts, sizes, where everything goes, try to make everything as organized and detail oriented as possible. Let's see. Okay.
All right. So we have 2 questions right here. Oh, Christine, were you good? You're good with the slide?
Yeah, I was just reading the questions actually. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm pretty much done with the slide.
Is there a place where we can find the contact info for UCLA recruiters from different companies? You see, to get the contact info for different recruiters, you have to go talk to the recruiter. I wish there was a place where I could just get all of it. Yeah. But so yeah, there's not a general place. You have to go talk to them. And honestly, I would say recruiters are pretty protective of their email. Yeah. And so So you got to be prepared. If you really want their contact info, you got to go in with research on their company with really good questions to ask. So yeah. Next question, is it a general rule to keep resumes a page long? In engineering, yes, because if you go more than a page long, now it's just like kind of a bit too much. If you're making a CV, which I don't remember what the letter C and V stand for, like my initials backwards for all I care. Your CV is a list of everything you've ever done, like ever. And so, you think about curriculum. Thank you, Layla. I was not going to get the second word at all. So you can have a CV, which is everything you've ever done. You look at people who are doctors, they have like 60-page CVs because they've like had hundreds of publications. But your resume is a concise one page. And so I would say it's not a general rule, it's like the rule for resumes, I would say. And I don't mean to like say that like being strict, but like a recruiter is not going to want to look at a multi-page resume. And so that's just kind of I hope I wasn't too strong on that. But I do want to tell all of you it's one page, my dude.
Keep it to one page. Like that's why actually on one of these points here that says that people tend to use words more than docs, because docs is kind of hard to deal with when you want to actually like, fine tune your resume to include all the things you want. And of course, just make it easily readable for your recruiters. So in order to, keep things short, keep things one page, you'd always pretty much go for Word. And something just to add on to about the question from before about UCLA recruiters for different companies. Yeah, the career fair is kind of like the first, like, what do you call that? Gauntlet for you to go through in the game. Yeah, so it's kind of there as like a gauge to see who's actually, interested in what specific companies. But an alternative to finding emails would be to maybe reach out to people on LinkedIn that you might have connected to through UCLA students or any UCLA faculty that you can see who are either like working for said company or like have connections to them. And you can message through LinkedIn and like ask for their emails there.
All right, next question is, when is the first career fair? That is a good question. Career fairs actually get covered in part 3 of this workshop, so in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But your first one is up to you.
There are so many
there's
out there.
There's gonna be some in fall for different clubs. There's gonna be the general engineering one. Your first career fair is when you're ready to do it. But they logistically they start in fall, not like week 1 fall, because week 1 fall is reserved for wonderful GMs like Sweet GM that all of you should go to. I forgot my sweet plug. I have to do all my events. But your first career, I would say maybe late October, early October. I would say October. Mm-hmm. But you can also find it online. We can give you resources on how to find career fairs. But we're going to talk about that in part 3, so we're not going to spoil too much for you tonight.
Yep.
Or else you're not going to come to part 3. It's going to be exciting.
Stay tuned.
Yes. All right. We're good to go to the next slide, Christine?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Jumping back into what we were talking about, more tips on fine-tuning and tailoring your resume to the specific position that you're applying for this time. So look at the job description when you're applying to different positions, because I know that sometimes you only get like the paragraph or like, okay, you look for a job on a website, right? And then they have the general information about the company that's always recycled. And then you have like one paragraph that's like about the actual job itself. So in that case, you kind of want to do your own research on like, what exactly that entails, what exactly that job like needs and like looks for in its position, and find matching keywords that people are looking for that position. And of course, put relevant experiences that you see that those jobs might be looking for near the top, because you want recruiters to get that first and capture their attention and kind of like continue on reading. And, you want to make your resume worth their time. That's kind of the end goal.
All right, so I'm going to jump in here. And I know looking at the slide, if I was back putting myself in the first year's position, I'm going to be like, what if I don't have relevant experience that matches the job description? And I'm going to tell you that's totally okay. I mean, I looked at my job description the other day and I didn't have half of those. I didn't have probably 90% of those. But what I want all the incoming freshmen to know, also everyone knows that, like, they're also going to look at your potential for growth, your eagerness to learn, how hard you work, how you fit onto the team. And those aren't necessarily technical skills you can quantify. And so as a first year, if you look at a job description and you're like, well, I don't match anything, I should just give up. Like, don't have that mindset. Like, if you're really, really interested in this job description, well, like, go for it. And we're gonna talk about this more strategies and how to play the game. But if you want to play the game, then you gotta play the game. And playing the game sometimes means getting rejected. And that's honestly probably what helps you get better. But if you don't feel like your experience matches the job description, like word for word, like that's okay. Show them what you have, be proud of what you have, and then go talk to them in a career fair if you can, and tell and meet them so that they know that your resume is more than just what it's on paper, so that they know who you are.
Yeah, don't be disheartened or intimidated by the people who are applying for the same position as you, because sometimes people might have like a buttload of technical skills and they might seem a lot more qualified than you are. But in reality, as long as you like know that your soft skills, as long as you can emphasize that you have the necessary soft skills for that position and that you're willing to learn, and you can really play that up as a first or second year, that is a pretty strong point of consideration for recruiters. So don't be afraid about that.
All right, you good to go next?
Yep. Yes. So general rules for resume don'ts. I think we've already mentioned a few of these before, but don't go longer than a page for engineering resumes. Don't use a font size that's hard to read, not too big, not too small. And that kind of depends on the font that you're using, because I know that some fonts just generally look a lot smaller than others. So kind of, try, a good thing for this is to print out like a blank sheet of paper with, not blank, a sheet of paper with like one sentence in like the font that you want to use, and just see if it's like easily legible from like an arm's length. No, maybe like half an arm's length away from your face. And of course, don't have inconsistent format. No, oh yeah. No inconsistent formatting.
Which one was forwards or backwards? My bad.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Spelling errors, you might not think that you get caught up by them, but they could be the death of your resume. So watch out for those. And of course, don't lie about your experiences, because you will not be able to back that up. And yeah, just last closing notes about resumes is that we have a contrast checker here that's available for you to see if your resume passes accessibility contrast checking tests. So that's just a basic test of like, is this like is this font and like font color easily legible on the background? And yeah, that's like you should always check your resume with that before you try anything. And we've also linked a resume parser and an evaluator. So I think what this tool does is that you feed it the PDF of your resume, and then it kind of returns a log of what it thinks your experiences are, and like kind of tries to evaluate you from the eye of like a recruiter. And of course, there are some other general resources linked down here with UCLA's examples and tips on resumes and cover letters, and resume examples from other sources.
Last resume rule that we have not said yet. Always a PDF.
Yeah.
No excuses. No excuses to not have a PDF.
No JPG.
Don't just call it.
No.
Yeah. Don't just call it resume.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Put your name on it. You can also have resume. Like I do, like maybe insurance and anything, but always a PDF.
It's also helpful to maybe save your resume in like different like versions of it and like name it accordingly, because I know that since it evolves over time, you also want to have like a master list of experiences that you can pull from to make like a new one at any point in time. So that's a good idea to also have. yeah, so general questions that might come up for resumes. Do I add an objective statement? So what exactly is an objective statement? If you guys have LinkedIn profiles or remember creating those, this is the 2 to 3 sentences at that you add on like after your name, where you list your objective, goals, and your interests, and kind of, yeah, give a little bit more description about yourself and like what you're looking for. But for engineering, this really isn't necessary, and it kind of just takes up extra space because you want to save that for your skills and experiences. So don't waste that on objective statements where you can explain through like, what is it? Direct interviews. And next, do I add my headshot to my resume? For engineering ones, you don't need these. And I think in general, for most resumes, you don't really include them either. Yeah, so one page, like we've emphasized before, is super tight. Don't worry about don't worry if it's like not as packed as you think it is when you're making your first draft, because again, experiences grow as time goes on. But you want to fill it up with experiences and skills again. And of course, your photo can kind of get messed up in auto resume parsers that people use online. Recruiters in particular use a lot of the time, because like JPGs and PNGs just do not go through well for those. And if you really want to include like a picture of yourself, put that on your LinkedIn, or like any other professional connecting, what do you call those kinds of websites.
Which we're going to cover in part 2. So make sure to be there for part 2.
Should it have like a tinge of design? Should I add more color? Okay, so to address the design of your entire resume first, it should, like, above all, like, don't try to go really fancy or elaborate. Just make it clean, make it easily readable. That is the number one priority. In case I haven't said that like 5 million times enough already. Design, as in, if you want to have more space and like, bolder fonts, that's a matter of utilizing your space well. So spaces, emptiness, and font like italicizing and bolding puts emphasis on words. And just pass it, like run your resume through the parser, no matter what you want to try, just to see that if it goes through properly. And color is more iffy. You can use it if you want, but a lot of business people tend to do this more so than engineering, because again, what you have on that technical skills and work experience part decides more of, your recruitability to people who see your resume.
All right, back to me. This is my favorite piece of the game. And I hate that not enough people know about this piece, because I think it's super important. And I think my cover letter is actually better than my resume. And so what is your cover letter and why is it different from your resume? And why don't people know it? Oh, I just that people don't know it. So what is your cover letter? It's also one page, but rather than being listed out in bullet points like your resume, I'm sorry if you hear the sirens outside or the big helicopters. It's just UCLA. It's one page where you can write, a few paragraphs to the recruiter and tell them why. Why do you care about this job? Why do you want to apply for it? Why are you the best fit for it? And so it goes hand in hand with your resume, because what you get 2 or 3 bullet points in your resume for, you can expand on in your cover letter. And so you can also use this as kind of to your advantage to level up in the game, to, if you personalize it to the company, if you make it really tailored, if you're covering that job description, then it's really going to bump you up. And so this is kind of what your cover letter looks like. You have kind of your name part up at the top. It's supposed to match your resume, which we'll talk about in a bit. Then you got some paragraphs that we'll go through in a bit. Okay. So let's talk about this myth about the cover letter. Companies don't look at your cover letter, and if anything, it hurts you more. Sometimes companies don't require your cover letter. Sometimes companies do. Sometimes it's optional. When it's required, well, you got to do it. Nothing you can do about that part. If it's not required or if it's optional, I would always say to do it if your cover letter is going to help you. Now, how can your cover letter hurt you? Is if, I can't go backwards. Can I go backwards? If if you put the hiring manager's name and it's from a different company, and you can clearly tell that I'm applying to Raytheon, but I'm putting in Northrop Grumman like cover letter, like there, it's going to be easily known that like you didn't tailor this, that you didn't care about this, that you're just doing it to do it, and they're not going to call you back. So that's how it can hurt you, is if you don't put enough time and effort to match it to that company. And if you just kind of write a template and you just kind of change names, like hi recruiter, like I'm interested in this for the company, this job ID, and you just change it, like they're going to be able to read that easily. This is a recruiter's job, is to go through hundreds of these. They've seen it all. And so you can't trick them by doing a template. And that's how it can hurt you. If you don't have time to do your cover letter and to do it well, don't do it. If you do have time to do it well, then do it. By all means do it, because it can help you so much. And I think it honestly helped me a lot as an incoming freshman, because maybe my resume didn't have as much technical experience, but what does is my interests and my soft skills that I can explain in words that aren't necessarily quantified in numbers. And my writing is my voice. You know, your resume is very like action word. This is what I did. This is what I did. But your cover letter is how you talk, is how you write. That's your personality right there. Your signature is your personality. Your format is your personality. And like that let me shine, because it was like my resume could have looked like every other resume, but my cover letter maybe looks different. That's why I care about it so much. I wish more people care about it. All right, let's go through the parts of your cover letter. So you have your name and your heading at the top. It's the same as your resume. Just copy it. Super easy. That's my favorite part of the cover letter. Okay. And now you're the recruiter info. So you would generally, if you can, have the name of them. You know, you talk to them at a career fair, like write down their name. Like you can say company recruiter, you can say HR, you can say company rep. If you don't know their name, or if this is like before you actually ever talk to them at career fair, that's totally fine. Put their address. If that company has multiple addresses, like a headquarters in Cali, but like other offices in Washington, D.C., like pick the one that you're going to apply for. And then the date that you put on your cover letter is the date you're putting it out into the application processor. Back in the day when things were actually in person, you would actually have printed copies of these things. But I don't know if that's ever going to come back. So, but your resume and your cover letter are like PB&J, which I have every morning. And they go together. They're meant to enhance each other. And yes. All right, next part, your introduction. 1 or 2 paragraphs, up to you. Again, your cover letter is how you want to design it. Simple things, who you are, you know, what's your name, what your pronouns, where you go, what are you about, and tell them how you found this job. Because if you tell them, hey, I found this job by talking to you, recruiter, and they remember you, then hey, maybe that's going to level you up in the game. So definitely include that in your first intro paragraph or 2. And then after your intro, it's up to you how you want to sell yourself. It's up to you what you want to talk about. Do you want to further explain or elaborate what you did in your resume in this experience and how it tailors to the job description? Or do you want to talk about your soft skills and leadership solutions? Or do you want to talk about why you're interested in the job? Did you find a project on the website that you really, really like? And you want to be like, I'm super interested in that. Sorry if you can hear my apartment. They're having a party right now. And I'm putting on a workshop at 8 p.m. on Thursday night, and they're partying. Anyway. Sorry. Anyways, sell yourself. And it's kind of the same thing. Like, don't lie, but like, don't put yourself down. This goes for just life. Don't put yourself down. And be proud of what you've done, and be proud of your soft skills, because I know that all of you here have the eagerness to learn and to want to be here. So make that known. And then your concluding statement. What do you want out of this cover letter? Did you want to network? Did you want their connection? Did you want an interview? If you do, be very nice about it. Do not demand an interview from them. They're not going to give it to you. Recruiters are humans too. It's like that. Anyways, that was a different thought. And then say thank you, because we quite frankly don't say thank you enough. And then sign your name. You can do it with a JPEG for your electronic copy, and then type your name beneath this so that they actually know what your name is if they can't read your signature. And this is kind of your time to be artsy with your signature if you really want. But yes, let's go over some rules. I'm going to say once again, 1 page PDF. and then address the employer's wish list. So look at that job description if you have it, and maybe like take a few of those words that are in the job description that apply to you and do that, and then promote yourself. And then I would say a lot of the reasons why a lot of engineering students are kind of like thrown off by the cover letter is because you have to write. And we think that now that we're engineering students, we like don't write anymore. But you need to write a few paragraphs by yourself and do it concisely, do it clearly. Remember that grammar and spelling are still super important in your cover letter. Use the same font as your resume, and then don't go less than 1 inch margins because now you're just doing too much text. It's a good balance of things. Your resume and your cover letter need to be balanced, both in terms of formatting and in terms of content. And that's what makes it different for everyone, is that what I define as balance in mine is very different from how Christine can others. And so that's how you can play the game to your advantage, is figure out what works for you. What balance do you have for your cover resume? All right, we actually ended early, surprisingly.
Wow.
Part 2 of the game, hey, Christine, we planned this. Part 2 of the game is next week, same time, same place, Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m. If you RSVP'd, you'll still get the link. If you RSVP'd, you'll get the slides and the recording of this. So if you just somehow got this link online, like make sure you RSVP so that you can have all these slides with you when you do start making your resume and your cover letter. Or if you're an upperclassman, you want to enhance it. But for now, if there's any questions about specifically researching companies, the resume, and the cover letter, because I know that all of you are super eager to learn about your LinkedIn and how to do a career fair, but we have all of this planned, I promise. There's a reason why this workshop's 3 parts, and we're just getting into a little bit of it today, and we didn't want to overwhelm you with like too much content. Besides, the resume is super important, so we want to start that. But if you have any questions at all about the topics we went over today,
I'll plug the feedback form real quick in case people don't have questions and have time on their hands to fill that out. So I'll just drop the link to the form in chat right now. And if you guys could all fill that out, we really appreciate it.
we actually read your feedback.
Yeah.
We just want all of you to know that.
Every single answer. It means a lot.
Yes.
People love you.
Anyway, can anyone speak about their experience as a freshman with an internship? I'm interested but worried about balancing with studies and other stuff. Aha. What could you have right here? So I was a freshman last year and I have an internship now. So I spent a majority of my fall quarter and a little bit until winter recruiting for an internship. And so I would say that out of like a scale of like 1 to 10, I played the game pretty hard. I started in summer. This isn't to scare any of you because I was just kind of in a different world over there. I played the game like on a scale of 1 to 10, I played like a 9 because I was serious. This is something I really wanted to do. And so, yes, I spent a lot of time crafting my resume and my cover letter and applying and going to career fairs, which does, you're right, take time out of other things. And so that is something to think about as a freshman. You are moving to a brand new campus. You are transitioning to college, and you're around new people and you want to party, and go do that. Go party. I'm gonna be the first person to go tell you that. If you had to sit down and you'd be like, should I go out with friends or should I do my resume? I will 100% tell you go out with friends as a freshman, because it's important to have that experience, and it's up to you how much you play the game. But if you're worried about balancing it with studies and other stuff, I would say that the best advice I can give you is to figure out what you want to prioritize. If you want to prioritize school and clubs, by all means, go do it. If you really want an internship by the end of your first year, then maybe you have to play the game a bit harder. And it's not to say that the game is unplayable. It is. We want all of you to know that you can play the game as a freshman and still, be focused on school and clubs. But did you want to know like my actual internship experience, or do you want to know my internship experience at the game?
Wait, real quick.
Yes.
I will mention that the whole part about balancing with studies and just like extracurriculars, you should also keep in mind that since things are going to be, at least like we're going to try to have them in person, you should account for the time change, like how things are going to be different from the way that you've experienced them in the past year and a half or so. So just make sure you give yourself enough leeway to adjust to that new format, and also experience what you want to experience. You're a freshman, right? It's the year where you have the most time to kind of figure out what you want to do the most. So yeah.
I hope that was a good answer to your question. I know I kind of took a roundabout way about doing it, but it's different for everyone, and it's about your own path. Any other questions about anything? Resume, cover letter, UCLA,
Life.
life.
Per chance life.
Well, that's a different game we're playing, Christine. If you have no more questions, you're good to go. Is Brew and Bash still happening? I don't know what that is. I should know that. Christine, do you know what that is?
I feel like I've heard that it's not, but no guarantees. I'm not the best source to ask about this.
But yeah, Vivian, it's like a not like a party, but kind of like a concert type of thing.
Yeah.
For this freshman year. In my opinion, not a big loss that it's not happening. But that because they had DeBaby come and play, and I was really overwhelmed by the so very specific. Everybody was moshing so hard that like hospital EMT people would come in with gurneys and like wheel people out of the mosh pit.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rithika, for your answer as well. Any other questions on anything? You're all free to go. You can go enjoy your Thursday night.
Or you can say if you have more questions.
Yeah. Do we want to stop the recording?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much.